In the golden silence of the Royal Opera House in London, after the final dress rehearsal, the CEO of the musical empire Britannia Enterprises, Charlotte Whitmore, stared at the Steinway grand piano with eyes full of challenge. It was 23rd December 2023, and the most powerful woman in the British music industry had just thrown down her gauntlet to the suitors gathered in the foyer. Whoever could play Chopin's Ballade No. 1 without error, she would marry the next day on Christmas. The millionaires present looked at each other nervously. None of them could actually play. But when Oliver Thompson, the 35-year-old night janitor with calloused hands and a blue uniform, approached the piano, everyone burst into laughter. Charlotte herself smiled condescendingly. What happened in the next 4 minutes not only forever changed the destiny of two people, but revealed a secret that broke the heart of a woman who thought she had forgotten how to truly love. The penthouse of Whitmore House on Regent Street glittered with London's most expensive Christmas lights. Charlotte Whitmore, 42 years of elegant ice and absolute power, observed her suitors with the detachment of a queen choosing her consort. Alexander Sterling, banking heir; Sebastian Hayes, hotel magnate; Edmund Ashford, automotive king. All wealthy, all powerful, all completely useless when it came to what she truly desired. Someone who understood the soul of music that had built her empire. The provocation had slipped from her lips like an impossible challenge. Anyone who could perfectly play Chopin's Ballade No. 1, she would marry the following day. The millionaires looked at each other awkwardly. They knew how to buy anything, but none had ever truly learned to play. Then Oliver Thompson appeared. The night janitor had entered through the service door, tall and quiet, with that natural grace that money cannot buy. He had heard the music from the office where he was cleaning and had come to check. When Charlotte explained the challenge, she looked at him with that condescension she reserved for staff, certain that he too, like the others, wouldn't know Chopin from a mobile ringtone. But something in Oliver's hazel eyes ignited when she mentioned that Ballade. Not humiliation? Determination. He asked if he could try, and Charlotte laughed, amused by the presumption of a simple janitor. Oliver sat at the Steinway piano. For a moment he closed his eyes, as if calling up memories buried deep in his soul. Then he began to play. The opening notes of the Ballade in G minor filled the room like a prayer whispered to God's heart. It wasn't just perfect technique. It was pure emotion transformed into music, every note telling stories of love lost and found, of pain transformed into beauty. Charlotte felt her legs trembling. That interpretation was identical to one she had heard 15 years earlier in a small cafe in Camden. The night that had changed her life forever. The night she had desperately tried to forget. The suitors left one by one, humiliated by the artistic superiority of a man who earned in a year what they spent on dinner. But Charlotte didn't even notice. She had been transported back in time, when she was just Lottie, a student at the Royal College of Music, in love with an extraordinary pianist. When Oliver finished the last chord and raised his eyes, he whispered a single word that made Charlotte's world collapse. "Hello, Lottie." Only one person in the world had ever called her that, a person she believed dead for 15 years. Charlotte stared at Oliver as if she were seeing the dead rise. Her perfectly manicured hands trembled as she gripped the piano's edge, her flawless makeup beginning to melt under the assault of tears she hadn't shed in a decade. Oliver rose slowly from the bench, every movement charged with that sweetness that had marked Charlotte's dreams and nightmares for 15 endless years. He hadn't died, as she had believed. He had simply vanished from her life, leaving her to rebuild herself from the fragments of a broken heart. Memories hit her like an unstoppable tide. London, 2008. She was 27, brilliant and full of dreams. He was 31. Oliver Thompson, the most talented pianist of their generation. Son of a builder from Croydon who had made his way through pure musical genius. They had fallen in love in that Camden cafe where he played every night to pay for his studies at the Royal College. Oliver began to recall that July night when she had learned she'd won the scholarship to Berklee College of Music in Boston. She had been so happy, so full of life, so different from the ice woman she had become. She had told him she would give up everything for him, that music only made sense if they shared it together. But he, with that nobility of soul that had made her fall in love, had told her to go. True love doesn't demand sacrifices, he had maintained, but supports dreams. And she, young and wounded, had replied that if he truly loved her, he would have fought to keep her. She had flown so high she forgot where she came from, Oliver told her now. Charlotte burst into tears, admitting the cruel truth. She had become everything they had hated when young. Cold, calculating, surrounded by men who only saw her money. The most shocking revelation came when Oliver confessed he had been working there for 5 years. Every night he passed by her office, saw the light on, heard her working until dawn. Every night he had hoped she would recognize him, but to her he was invisible. Just the night janitor. Oliver had discovered her success, everything she had built, and had come to London for that reason. Not by chance, but to try to win back the love of his life. But the Lottie he had loved seemed dead, buried under layers of ambition and pain. When Oliver asked if she was happy, Charlotte couldn't answer. For the first time in 15 years, someone had seen through her armor of success and power, straight to the empty heart beating beneath. And then came the final challenge. Oliver reminded her of her promise. She had said she would marry whoever played Chopin without error. He had done it. He was the only person in that room who had played for love, not interest. The only one who truly knew her. The question that tormented her all night was terrible in its simplicity. Did she still have the courage to keep her word? Or was CEO Charlotte Whitmore too proud to marry a janitor? But what Oliver didn't know was that Charlotte had a secret buried for 15 years. A secret that, once revealed, would change everything they thought they knew about their past. The morning of 24th December, Charlotte woke in her bed overlooking Hyde Park, but for the first time in years the phone remained off. The sound of Chopin still echoed in her ears, along with Oliver's voice calling her Lottie, that name she had buried with her girlhood dreams. She rose and walked barefoot to her desk, where she opened a secret drawer she hadn't touched for 15 years. Inside, a blue velvet box guarded the ghosts of her past. A yellowed letter, photos of her and Oliver young and radiant, and something that stopped her breath, a positive pregnancy test dated August 2008. Memories submerged her like a killer wave. After that terrible night in Camden, she had left for Boston with her heart in pieces. But 2 weeks after starting courses at Berklee, she had discovered she was carrying Oliver's child. She had called 1,000 times, but he had changed his number. She had tried to track him down, but he had vanished from London like a ghost. Alone in a foreign city, she had made the most atrocious decision of her life. She couldn't raise a child without a father, without a career, without a future. The abortion had nearly killed her, not just physically but spiritually. From that moment, she had built a wall of ice around her heart. Every success, every million earned had been a form of self-inflicted penance. If she couldn't be a mother, she would be the most powerful woman in the music industry. If she couldn't love, she would dominate. When Oliver arrived that afternoon, Charlotte had rebuilt her armor. She was again the immaculate CEO, perfect makeup, absolute control. But Oliver saw beyond the facade, saw the wounded child hiding behind the power. He confessed to not sleeping, to spending the night thinking about what they had become. He revealed that he had started working in that very building 5 years earlier, after discovering she worked there. It hadn't been coincidence. He had learned of her success and come to London for her. The most devastating confession came when Oliver admitted That night in Camden, when he had let her go, hadn't been nobility. It had been the biggest mistake of his life. He had spent 15 years regretting it. Every day he had seen her in that building without being recognized had been personal hell. He knelt before her, asking for a second chance. But Charlotte, with the weight of the secret crushing her, kept repeating it was too late. Lottie was dead, along with everything they had lost. When Oliver asked what they had lost besides themselves, Charlotte whispered a word that contained all the world's pain. Everything. But Oliver also had a secret he had discovered 5 years earlier and kept hidden.
Enjoying the story? Give it a little like and don't forget to subscribe. Now then, let's carry on.
Waiting for the right moment. A secret that would forever change the course of their story. Oliver took Charlotte's hands in his, and this time she didn't pull away. There was something in his eyes that prepared her for an even greater shock than she had already suffered. In 2019, when he had started working in the building, Oliver had hired a private investigator to reconstruct Charlotte's life during their years apart. He wanted to understand how she had become so different from the girl he had loved. The investigator had found records from Berkeley College, excellent grades, but also something else that had broken Oliver's heart. Documents from a Boston clinic, dated August 2008. When he spoke the word baby, Charlotte's world completely collapsed. She fell onto the sofa, her body shaken by sobs she had held back for 15 years. Oliver knew. He knew about the child they had never had. The story that emerged was even more tragic than either had imagined. Charlotte told through tears how she had desperately searched for Oliver for weeks, but he had disappeared. Oliver, shocked, confessed he had changed his number because he kept calling her without ever getting an answer, thinking she had forgotten him. But when Oliver showed the number he had saved as Lottie Whitmore, American number, Charlotte paled. The last 2 digits were switched. It wasn't her number. The truth exploded like a bomb. Emma, Charlotte's sister, had deliberately given the wrong number when Oliver had gone looking for her at their parents' house. For 15 years they had suffered because of the sabotage of a jealous woman who couldn't bear to see her younger sister have everything: talent, success, and love. Emma had known Oliver was looking for her. She had known Charlotte was looking for him, and she had kept them apart out of pure envy, destroying 2 lives and condemning an innocent baby to death. Oliver, devastated, confessed that if he had known about the baby, he would have done anything for her. They would have found a way together. Charlotte cried even harder, telling of the terrible loneliness of that decision, made in a foreign country without the man she loved. She had built her empire as a form of penance, every success a desperate attempt to fill the void left by that loss. But the pain had never passed, not even for a day. When Oliver asked if she was still capable of love, Charlotte confessed that the night before, hearing him play, she had felt the sensation of coming home, of being herself again. At that moment, the phone rang. It was Emma, and Charlotte, with a determination she hadn't felt for years, decided it was time to settle accounts with the past once and for all. The conversation was brief and final. Charlotte told her sister that the next day, on Christmas, she would marry Oliver, and that she wasn't invited. But someone had heard everything, and the consequences would be more explosive than either could imagine. On 25th December 2023, London woke to news that shook the business world. The newspapers, fed by Emma's tip-off, exploded with sensational headlines. Music Queen marries the janitor. From penthouse to broom cupboard. Wedding of the year. In the penthouse of Whitmore House, Charlotte was preparing in a simple white silk dress, without the ostentatious luxury that characterized her public life. For the first time in years, she felt truly beautiful, not constructed or perfected, but authentic. Outside, chaos reigned supreme. Journalists besieged the entrance. Shareholders of Britannia Enterprises were in total panic. The phone rang incessantly with calls from her lawyers and business partners, threatening to withdraw their investments. Oliver, now dressed elegantly but with hands still calloused from honest work, watched his bride prepare and offered to wait. He didn't want her to ruin everything she had built for him, but Charlotte was determined. For 15 years, she had built an empire while losing herself. That day, she wanted to reclaim who she really was, whatever the cost. Emma arrived like a hurricane of guilt and desperation. At 38, she was still beautiful, but with the bitterness of someone who had never managed to be happy. She begged Charlotte not to marry Oliver, not to throw everything away for a love from the past. It was then that Charlotte revealed the most painful truth. She had lost a baby, Oliver's child, because Emma had separated them with her lies. The confession hit Emma like a deadly slap. She had never known about the baby, but now understood the enormity of the harm she had caused. Repentant and destroyed, Emma asked for forgiveness and permission to attend the wedding. Charlotte, guided by Oliver's wisdom, accepted, but as a sister, not as guest of honor. That afternoon, in the small church of St. George's, Hanover Square, the simplest and truest wedding of Charlotte's life was celebrated. There were no expensive flowers or orchestral music, just Oliver at the church piano playing Ave Maria while she walked down the aisle. Few people were present. Father William the vicar, George the doorman as witness, Emma crying silently, and Robert, Oliver's father, who had come from Croydon especially to meet the woman his son had spoken about for 15 years. When Father William asked if they took each other as husband and wife, both answered yes, with a conviction that had been missing for too long. But as they kissed at the altar, outside a crowd of journalists and cameras awaited them. The real world was about to test their newfound love in ways they couldn't yet imagine. The real battle for their future together was just beginning. A week after the wedding, reality hit with the force of a financial hurricane. In the office they now shared, Charlotte and Oliver looked at the damage with the calm of those who had consciously chosen love over profit. Britannia Enterprises shares had fallen 40%. 3 board members had resigned. Several business partners had broken contracts. But something magical was happening. Hans Müller, director of the Vienna Philharmonic, called with a revolutionary proposal. He had followed their story in the newspapers and, instead of being scandalized, had been fascinated. He proposed a special concert in Vienna. Charlotte as producer and artistic director, Oliver as principal pianist. An evening to prove to the world that love and music were the most powerful combination that existed. It was the first time in years that someone had proposed a project to Charlotte that involved the heart as well as the brain. They accepted immediately. In the months that followed, they transformed Britannia Enterprises into something completely new. Instead of focusing only on profits, they created a platform for emerging artists. Oliver returned to professional performance, this time with the total support of the woman he loved. Their first concert together in Vienna was a triumph no one expected. Oliver at the piano, Charlotte conducting the orchestra for the first time in 15 years. When they finished with Chopin's Ballade, No. 1, the same one that had reunited them, there wasn't a dry eye in the audience. International music critics spoke of pure magic and love transformed into art. Financially, they earned half of what they had before, but Charlotte woke up happy every morning. Money was just paper. What they had now was priceless. A year later, in the same church of St. George's, Hanover Square, they renewed their vows. This time, there were hundreds of people, artists they had helped, friends from their new path, even some former business partners who had learned to appreciate their revolutionary approach to business. Emma was there, now married to a music teacher she had met at her sister's charity concerts. Before the ceremony, she whispered one word to Charlotte: "Thank you. Thank you for teaching her that forgiveness is the purest form of love." The real magic came when Robert, Oliver's father, approached the altar holding baby Grace, a 6-month-old whom Charlotte and Oliver had adopted from a young pianist who couldn't raise her. As they walked down the aisle, Charlotte looked at Oliver and understood they had done something more important than reclaiming the past. They had created a future, something that was entirely theirs. When they kissed at the altar, with Grace laughing in her grandfather's arms and Chopin's music filling the church, everyone understood a universal truth. The most beautiful stories are those that begin with goodbye and end with welcome home. London's most ruthless CEO had returned to being Lottie, the girl who believed in love, in music, and in the miraculous possibility that every sad ending can transform into a new beginning full of hope. The janitor had won the queen, but above all, love had conquered everything else. If this story made you believe that true love always waits for the right moment to return, leave a like. Tell us in the comments, do you believe there are still great loves that resist time? Have you ever found someone again that you thought you'd lost forever? Subscribe and turn on notifications for more stories that prove destiny always has a plan, even when everything seems lost. Share this story with someone who needs to believe it's never too late to start again. Remember, the most beautiful music is born from the heart, just like the truest love.